Let's quickly call to order the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board meeting for June 9th. I'll ask the clerk to take roll, please.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Mahaffey.
Here.
Hensley. Here. Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is the authorization to release mortgage and related security instruments for Kirby L. Hansen of 2015 East 24th Street pursuant to the 5H Affordable Home Ownership Program, Board Communication number 14-250. Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this item? All right, could we have a motion?
Move.
It's been moved. Any discussion? We'll have a vote.
Yes, please.
Please press your buttons, everybody. We are getting very formal on this.
That means you, Chris.
7 yes.
Damn lawyers.
All right, that's the last item. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We will begin our city council meeting in 1 minute. But prior to that, we're going to have a quick message from our own city council member, Christine Hensley, and we would ask that those who would participate with us to stand at this time. Mrs. Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought in recognition of Father's Day that I would share with you a poem that has a lot of meaning for me. What makes a dad? God took the strength of a mountain, the majesty of a tree, the warmth of a summer sun, the calm of a quiet sea, the generous soul of nature, the comforting arm of night, the wisdom of the ages, the power of the eagle's flight, the joy of a morning in spring, the faith of a mastered seed, the patience of eternity, the depth of a family need. Then God combined these qualities when there was nothing more to add. He knew his masterpiece was complete, and so he called it Dad. Author unknown. Thank you.
Yeah, you're done.
All right, we'll call to order our city council meeting again for June 9th. I'll ask the clerk to please take roll.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Mahaffey.
Here.
Hensley.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. There's been a request, because I think there's a number of people that have another meeting shortly after ours, to move item 59 forward to right after the consent agenda.
I'll move.
All right, that item is moved. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda tonight. These are items 3 through 47. These are items that we take as a single vote and will pass without further discussion unless a member of the city council or a member of the audience asks for one to be pulled for further clarification or discussion. Tonight, Councilmember Coleman and 4J votes no. Item 6, Councilmembers County and Moore vote no. Item 24, Councilmember Moore votes no. Item 43D, Councilmember Hensley votes no. And item 47, Councilmember Gray wishes to speak.
4C, I'd like to speak.
And 4C, Councilmember Mahaffey wishes to speak. Are there any other items anybody would like to have pulled for further discussion or clarification? Again, those are 3 through 47. Seeing none, could we
I'll
have a
move.
motion for the balance, please?
Seven yes.
All right, takes us to item 4C. 4C is a approving alcoholic beverage license applications for the following. C is the Beer Bucket and Burgers at 910 Hull Avenue. Asking for a C liquor license. Councilmember Mahaffey.
Yes, I was up by there last night, and the name on the tavern now is Mom's, and I didn't know whether that had to be addressed as far as the liquor license or not. So I'm asking our legal counsel, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, the liquor licenses are not transferable, and I'm not familiar with what the nature of the change is, or whether or not there's been a change in ownership, or if this is a DBA that just isn't designated as a doing business as. So if council would like to postpone this item until the next council meeting, we can check into that and get your answers back for you.
I would so move.
Seven yes.
All right, takes us to item 47. Councilmember Gray wants to speak on this one. It's on a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance to establish a citywide freestanding sign overlay district. Mr. Gray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is one of the highlights, the things that we've seen on the Merle Hay corridor, and I'm glad to see we're at the second reading of this. This is showing good support throughout the neighborhoods. The one thing that we do want to make sure, and I received a phone call from the gentleman that just walked in, Mr. Jason Polium, I hate to put him on the spot, but we would like to see, and I know we're into the second reading, I don't want to make this change right now, but we would like to see a 500-foot separation. 100-foot is pretty small, but I've talked with Mike Ludwig about it, and I think we can get this worked in, but at least for right now, I like the direction this is going, and so I'm going to move that we go for 47.
So is the plan that it will come back with that 500-foot at the final reading?
I better ask Mike. I was thinking it was the 2 to 3 year comprehensive plan, but
Oh, okay.
But Mike, is you have a second? I'd stay 100.
Comp
Okay.
plan is, okay.
Good. Okay.
Bill, I just will say that there has been, I've gotten a number of emails from folks that wish we had it at 1,000. So,
Yeah. You know, the thing about it is that as opposed to buying a home at the airport or buying near railroad tracks, people know what they're getting into. But the people that buy a home on either side of, for example, Merle Hay, first thing you got if somebody changes digital, well, I've lived in the home for 30 years, and all of a sudden my bedroom's being violated. So those are the kind of things that we want to make sure. 1,000 foot, I could go with that too. Thank you.
Seven yes.
all right. That completes the consent agenda. There had been that request to move item 59 forward, which is approving a preliminary terms of agreement with American Republic Insurance Company at 601 6th Avenue for corporate headquarters renovations and submittal to the IEDA Business Assistance Application, Council Communication number 14-284. Is there anyone in the audience to speak to this item?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jake Christensen, 506 3rd Street, Des Moines. I am thrilled to be a part of the team presenting this tonight. With me is Tim Hall with American Enterprise Group. And Chris,
Thank you.
this is what we're going to present. I just would like to talk through what we're standing here in front of you talking about doing, and then let Tim conclude. So in 1965, this is what American Republic building looked like. And it's our goal as a team to bring the building back to its former glory. When you drive by the building now, you may not recognize that some people have to sit next to the window with a winter coat on while other people are very hot. You might not recognize that the windows need to be replaced. You might not recognize that the building is not sprinklered and that the building doesn't have smoke detection to today's code. So the goal of the team over the next year is to completely restore this building back to its original grandeur, When the building was placed in service, it was a National Architectural Award-winning building. It is on Des Moines' list of gems that should be kept. And so a credit to everyone involved in working on this project. We have been working diligently to come up with a solution to be able to stand in front of you today. And so with that, we will be, let me skip this one. Maybe I'll just give you another view inside the building. The building is truly one of, it's very deserving of the architectural award that it won. But in summary, American Enterprise will invest $30 million in bringing this building back to life. It will retain 264 jobs in downtown. And over the next 5 to 7 years, the growth plan is for 179 jobs. I mentioned some of the integration of life safety and replacement of the building systems, but we're also working to achieve LEED certification. And it's our goal actually as a team to document this process in a manner that would make the building eligible for a National Preservation Award as well as an example of mid-century modern restoration. So there are many groups, as I mentioned, that are working to, we got a significant number of people on the team, but in addition to that, the project is leveraging many sources of assistance to make this work. We have high-quality jobs. I mentioned the number of both new jobs and retained jobs, so there's a significant amount of investment from the state of Iowa from a job standpoint. And then with the importance of the building, the federal historic tax credit and state historic tax credit come into play and are a large part of how we're able to make this work. So with that, I would field any questions and certainly welcome Tim to have any comments that he would like to make, but thank you very much for the time.
Skip?
Jake, you and I spoke for just a few short minutes on this morning, but I'm real pleased with what's going on here. I'm pleased to hear that you're going to try and hire as much local labor to do the renovation and local materials. I realize on some issues like the glass, you're not going to be able to purchase it here, but I'm really pleased that they're going to stay there and keep these jobs in downtown Des Moines.
Thank you.
Any questions about the project, anybody? Christine?
Well, I think I'd like Tim, did you want to make some comments, Tim?
No, Councilwoman Tim Hall, American Republic, American Enterprise, 601 6th Avenue, Des Moines. We very much appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you to have the chance to continue our existence in downtown Des Moines. Since the company was founded, it's been a downtown Des Moines company. We moved one block to the north in 1965. We want to stay there for another 50 years. This project is going to let us do that.
Fabulous.
I just would like to echo the comments that are made, and you've got a great team that you've pulled together to work with you, and I was sharing with you out in the hallway that a year ago when we sat down, I wasn't sure where you were going to end up. I thought that something was afoot, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I'm just thrilled to death that you've made the commitment to downtown and the investment in the building, and the fact that you're bringing new jobs into the downtown corridor. You've got a lot of amenities right around the building, so I think it's a home run for all of us downtown.
We think it is too. We did look at a number of alternatives, moving out of this downtown corridor, moving out of the state, actually. We have other companies that are in Nebraska, for example, but this is a Des Moines, this is an Iowa company. At the end of the day, this is the best financial situation for us overall. It was the right choice for our policyholders, and it was the right choice for our employees.
Well, we appreciate the commitment. Thank you.
We appreciate your commitment to us. Thank you.
I'm happy to move item 59.
All right, as you're voting, both Jake and Tim, I've had the opportunity to talk with mayors all over this country and around the world for that matter, and what you're doing is making such a strong statement about downtown in business, which I'm hearing from other mayors around the world, that you're getting a lot of pressure as people are looking for opportunities to put their businesses right down in the heart of the cities where they're walkable, there's good public transportation, people can live and work close by and can not have to have single occupant vehicles to move 15 miles to their office. So what a great statement, and we're proud of it, and quite frankly, we are often acknowledged as being that walkable place in a surprising place in an international city. So thank you so much. We'll work with you any way we can. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
All those are words that we started using in the last decade, but American Republic was all that decades before that, with
They
the
were.
park and the garden and the
They were
art
way
and
ahead of us.
everything, the beautiful building. It's exciting.
Well, the way it looks right now, you could film an episode of Mad Men in there, and you would only have to move the computers and replace them with typewriters. That's...
And add cigarettes.
Yes, and add
That's
cigarettes.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot. All right, let's take us back now to item 47, or 48, on a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding the allowed operation, size, and location of electronic signs and multi-vision display signs and use of conversion credits earned by the removal of an off-premises advertising sign as amended. Council Communication Number 14-253. Any comments? Council? Anybody? Mr. Gray?
I asked for the lead to have another look at that, and I'm pleased with the kind of language that's been put in here. It gives the small business owners a little bit more latitude, but it sets the city up for a comprehensive look at controlling those kind of signs going forward. So I think Mr. Meyer had come and made a pretty good pitch to city staff. I think we've finally come up with a win-win situation. I am very pleased. I want to see this continue to go forward, so if there's nobody here who wants to speak, I'll move. Okay.
All right, the item's been moved. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak?
He wants to speak.
One gentleman there.
One person? All right, thank you.
I'll be brief, Your Honor and council members. John Nagel, owner of Eagle Sign in Des Moines, Iowa. I think the city is missing the boat on this electronic thing a little bit. 6 weeks ago, I sat here and you as a council praised small business before council awarding, and you stated how small business was the backbone of employment, everything about your city. And, 100 years ago, we were all horses, no cars. I'm sure there were people that wanted to keep all the horses and no cars. The electronic signs are here. But the ordinance that we're trying to pass does not allow for anyone to now have a new one with reasonable terms. I would like you to consider letting the people that buy future signs to have the same terms that you've put into this ordinance or grandfathered in for the other people. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's make sure that comment is on our record. I will also say that we got some late afternoon calls. There was a Floyd Wilson. Floyd said he'd like to voice his concerns with electronic billboards. The billboard on Fleur Drive shines directly into his bedroom. He's against the signs and wants to go on record as such. Sorry he cannot attend the meeting. And we did receive one from Brian Meyer, who stated, as you know, we had a meeting with city staff to try to come up with compromise language. The small LED signs, although not entirely what we wanted, we believe that the language before council is fair, and we would like to be part of the conversation on a permanent ordinance moving forward, as I'm sure you would as well. And again, I can only speak for my clients, Dave Harkins, Steve Davis, and Community Bank. However, there were many more affected parties at the meeting last week and are aware of the proposal. So we'll put both of these on record, and I'll give these to the clerk to file with our record. All right? We have a motion.
Can I just clarify one other thing?
Sure.
We had an exchange with the company that has some billboards in town about the credits on billboards that have, and I think that ended that we were in agreement that the credits are earned before all these ordinances.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
That's why the effective date change is in this particular amendment.
Okay.
Sir.
And so those credits are available, but for them to use under the old rules?
That's correct.
Okay.
Seven yes?
All right. Takes us to item 49, first consideration of amending Chapter 114 Municipal Code regarding traffic regulation changes as follows. Council Communication Number 14-272. A is designating Ankeny Avenue as a through street. B, designating Stanton as a through street between Fluor Drive and McKinley Avenue. C, the removal of handicap parking meter on the south side of Mulberry Street between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. D is the removal of handicapped parking space from the west side of 16th Street south of Gillette Street. E is a loading zone on the west side of East 5th Street north of East Grand Avenue. And F is a downtown on-street bike facilities implementation. Those are the ordinances for first consideration. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to any of these?
If nobody's here, I would move 49A through F, and I would move 49A through E for final consideration according to the non-pre-published. I'd like to leave the downtown bike facilities on there.
Seven yes?
All right, item 50. Items regarding fishing in Des Moines and rules for principal river walk and multi-use recreational trails. A is amending Chapter 74 of the Municipal Code regarding fishing. B is amending Chapter 130 of the Municipal Code regarding fishing, Council Communication Number 14-257. C is the rules for the principal Riverwalk Park and multi-use recreational trails, Council Communication Number 14-258. And D is a request from Ben Dodd of 2315 Park Avenue of Granger to speak regarding the Des Moines River fishing restriction. Let's ask if there's anybody here to speak to item 50, A, B, C. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor County. Honorable council members, I'm Chuck Kipp. I'm currently the director of the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. And many of my capacities, whether as a legislator or previously, I've worked with the Des Moines City Council on a number of their issues, most recently with the burned out hulk of the recycling center on Northeast 14th. So we have a history in the department of working with the City Council. Tonight we're coming and appealing to you before considering a change in the use of the opportunity for people to fish, like a long-standing fishing along the Des Moines River segments that are within the city of Des Moines. In Iowa, 98% of the property that we have in Iowa is in private ownership, and therefore we have to guard the use of the public property as best we can and work with private entities to allow outdoor recreational activities and fishing for those people to have them access. So we're here to ask you to consider continuing allowing people to have access to fishing along that segment of the Des Moines River. With me also with me this evening is the Fisheries Bureau Chief Joe Larscheid, as well as Ben Dodd, Fisheries Biologist, and would have asked for your consideration. Allow them to speak as well. Thank you. Joe.
Thanks, John. I'm Joe Larscheid, Chief of Fisheries, and I'd just like to emphasize we really want to work with the City of Des Moines on enhancing fishing opportunities within the city, and we have a new urban initiative, and Des Moines was our first partner with that. We're really looking at opportunities. How can we make fishing access better? How can we make it safer? How can we enhance it? And Ben's going to show you some data. That segment of the Des Moines River we're talking about is the most used segment in Iowa. There's a lot of fishing activity going on. It's been going on for 150 plus years. We got documentation going way back to 1800s. And it's just, like Chuck said, it's a shame that a public resource, is going to be taken away for a perceived problem. Before we I would like to work with you and work with the city of Des Moines to, to see what we can do before, we implement a closure. Let's try to work together on this, work with the local fishing clientele and try to come up with some solutions to the perceived problems. And right now, I think the perceived problems, I don't think there's any documented, conflicts between the trail users and anglers. And so I would really, hope that we can come together at the table and work on the solution together. And with that, I'm going to have Ben talk more about, what we're talking about here.
Thanks, guys. Is there any way I can get this PowerPoint projected on the screen? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, again, my name's Ben Dodd. I'm a fisheries biologist for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. One of the main goals of my position is to improve fishing and also access here in central Iowa. So like Joe mentioned, fishing has a very strong cultural heritage here in downtown Des Moines. There's a gentleman by the name of Tacitus Hussey who published a book in 1919 called Beginnings, an early Des Moines, or Reminiscences of an Early Des Moines. And in that book, he talks a little bit about his experiences fishing below the Center Street Dam and the friendships that he formed, and how a lot of the businessmen used to get up very early in the morning, catch fish, take those fish in, and actually cook breakfast for their employees. So a very long-standing history of fishing here and a strong cultural heritage. If you go down and you visit Scott Street Dam or you visit Center Street Dam, you're going to find folks from all races, all ages, and all socioeconomic backgrounds. I was down at Scott Street Dam after one of our meetings regarding this issue, and I found this gentleman with the American flag cap on who had just took about a 3-pound hybrid striped bass. These other folks grabbed a old bicycle rim that had a net tied to it and tried to help him land it. Unfortunately, they were close, but not quite. He lost the fish. But it was a really cool experience for me because there were 4 folks there who I could envision being complete strangers fishing shoulder to shoulder at one time, who are now, they're fishing together, helping each other land these fish. And it was a pretty neat experience. So I'm going to get into some of the economic benefits to your community by angling and the anglers. In 2009, we had a Iowa River Usage and Valuation Project where our rivers were broken up into 73 segments, and the usage and valuation was estimated through household surveys. What they found in that survey was that the Des Moines River from Saylorville to Red Rock was the #1 most used interior river segment in all the state. 1.1 million annual trips, 444,000 household trips, and almost $48 million in spending. The other cool thing that came out of that survey was when they talked with folks, they found that there was a willingness of folks to pay up to $19 per household trip, which was nearly $3 more than the second-ranked river segment. In addition, the City of Des Moines Parks and Rec Department very own citizen survey in 2007, there was 47% of the respondents who indicated a need for fishing piers and docks. 51% indicated a need for riverfront parks. And you may wonder why people utilize these bridges for fishing, and it's because of scenes like this below Scott Street where, the banks are very steep, very muddy, or a lot of times they're very steep and rip-wrapped. And these are dangerous situations, and it becomes very dangerous when you're in close proximity to these low-head dams like at Center Street and at Scott Street. So like Joe and Chuck mentioned, we're really here to try and further partner with you guys on some projects here down the road. We've collaborated on youth fishing and getting kids outdoors in the past. We've got funding opportunities through our Fisheries Bureau and our Water Trails program, and we'd like to further our partnership to improve our outdoor recreation opportunities here in downtown Des Moines. This is an article from the Charles City Press, a project that we had a part in, and basically it was a dam modification over there that provided some excellent multi-use opportunities for tubers, folks that do tubing, float trips, canoers, kayakers, and also the anglers. In one of our ad hoc committee meetings, Robin Fortney, she was a member of that committee, and she made a statement that kind of stuck with me. She said, you know what, we're the capital city. We can do this here if we want to. And she was talking about this kind of project. So our request to the council is to implement non-regulatory alternatives rather than regulatory. We feel that the proposed restriction is taking things in the wrong direction. There's opportunity along the west side of the bank, below Center Street, to widen the trail what appears to be about a foot if there's significant concern. We don't know at this point that there's any documented cases regarding trail user and angler conflict. Give education, some signage, trash receptacles, and volunteer efforts a chance to work at this point before we go to a regulatory stance. And we just really hope that you do not approve this proposal and instead work with us to try and improve our multi-use recreation opportunities down here. On the right is a stringer of a young man who caught a really nice stringer of walleye on the Des Moines River. And again, I'm gonna end this talk with a quote from Tacitus Hussey, who talks about the Anglers Club, who used to meet down below Center Street Dam. And I think if you guys go down there, you'll find that Angler Club still exists today. So
And
that's
question.
it. Yeah.
DNR has been involved in the subsequent meetings that have been held with Parks and Rec, correct?
I have been.
You have been? Okay. So, but the recommendations coming forward, that,
I voted against the proposal.
okay. Thank you.
I was the lone.
You were the lone vote? Okay.
I have some questions for Ben. You know, this isn't just the river walk here, it's also on Gray's Lake. Do you think there ought to be fishing on swimming beaches? When we build a walk that is built for a walkway and not fishing, do you think they should be allowed to fish on that walkway?
Well, at this point, there aren't any documented cases of conflict. I think I'm correct on that. And so, you know, there's opportunity to widen that trail about a foot on that west bank there. The Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway Bridge, there are lanes for automobiles. There are 2 lanes for bicycle traffic. There are also 2 walkways. It seems that allowing a little bit of fishing on the south side walkway would be feasible. I mean, the bicycle traffic shouldn't be on that walkway. It should be in the bike lanes, I would assume. And it just seems like there's room for folks to do both here.
I'd like to get back to my original question. We build a facility that is for walking and biking only. That's what the one at Gray's Lake was built for. Do you think they should be allowed to fish off of it?
So you're talking about the bridge trail? Is that what you're?
At Gray's Lake.
The bridge? You know, I don't see a whole lot of people fishing off of that bridge, to be honest with you, when I've been down there. So I guess my main concern were the Martin Luther King Jr. Bridge, Parkway Bridge, and the west bank below Center Street, especially that part. It's a popular fishing area, and like Joe and Chuck mentioned, we have very limited public access to our resources here in Iowa, and so that's what I guess my top concern was. So.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, I see that we have Mr. Page here that maybe could clarify exactly everything that we're talking about, but if you have a quick question, Mr. Coleman?
No. I was going to make a couple recommendations. Go ahead.
Ben Page, Mayor County, members of Des Moines City Council, Ben Page, Director of Parks and Recreation. I want to thank you for a brief opportunity to give you a brief update on how this recommendation made it to your table for consideration tonight. I have a few slides to take you from the history from where it started and where it is today. So as you know, we have a 3-party agreement with the Downtown Community Alliance and the Riverfront Development Authority to manage and maintain the beautiful Principal River Walk as well as other downtown public spaces. This group's charged with finding rules as well as taking care of the maintenance. They began meeting back in December of 2013 to look at rules for the Riverwalk. We knew that when this facility came online, it would be a very popular destination, much like Gray's Lake. And at Gray's Lake, as you know, we have hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million people a year there. So our job is to find rules that keep our citizens safe and protect our investment, but also manage our liability. So this group started working. They made a recommendation to the Park Board in February. started out like this. As you know, right now on the books for our laws, we do have no fishing at University Avenue going forward on all those bridges. That's already been adopted many years ago. I-235 is managed by the state. So I want to focus you down to where the Riverwalk bubble is, down in this area. In February, we had a public meeting with the Park and Recreation Board. No comments from the public, but the board told us this just didn't feel right. They said this is not hitting the mark yet. They sent us back. They said, would you come back in March with a few changes? In March, we came back with this. The difference between the last map and this map is we opened up the 4 downtown vehicular bridges, Grand, Locust, Walnut, Court, but also extended the fishing restrictions along the riverbank in front of the Botanical Gardens, as well as the dog park, downtown dog park. At that point, at the public meeting, it was well attended. We had several concerns and several comments. So the board again said, it just doesn't feel right. Let's go back and table this. But in the meantime, let's create an ad hoc committee that could help us define what would be a better win-win solution, or maybe a compromise. So an ad hoc committee was created. As you see, we had 4 Park and Recreation Board members. We had representation from the community that was in charged with fishing. We had the DNR, we had Central Iowa Anglers, we had the Central Iowa Paddlers, the Trails and Greenways, and the Isaac Walton League. We also had staff. As you see, they were non-voting members as resources in helping to do research and liaison work. This committee met 2 times and came up with the following map. Again, this is only for the Riverwalk. It does not include Scott Street Bridge. That is not being changed. It's still able to fish at that location. They said this is the area we would like to focus you at right now. The red line, if you will, is an area that would be restricted for fishing, and that's just the width of the trail, the recreational trail. The 2 pedestrian bridges and ML King. The big pinch point, if we had our way, we'd open it back up, but right now we have a liability concern. If you follow Walnut Street on the west side of the river and go north to about Mid-America's property, it's the river wall, balustrade wall touches our trail. There is no green space. We consider that a large liability for us to have folks setting up fishing and potentially hooking somebody. Haven't had any reports, as the DNR's mentioned that. We made that real clear in our ad hoc committee. However, we expect to see that as the Riverwalk starts to evolve and more people come down there. So everywhere else on the map you see, the green would be areas that you could fish, the riverbanks all the way up and down the Riverwalk. Again, we have 46 trash barrels out there today, and those yellow spots would be where we put up some signage. So the committee said that felt good. And they made a recommendation along with, they would ask the city to continue to coordinate the river run, garbage grab, and the different volunteer projects we do to keep the Riverwalk green as well as the rest of the city, as well as consider maybe an Adopt a River program. But last but not least is to put educational signage up. Instead of, don't fine or the big bad city will come and give you a fine, know if you litter, they wanted more of leave no trace signage up there, more environmental messaging. So the committee met on April 30th. They made a recommendation to pass this on to the Park and Recreation Board 7-1. So the Park and Recreation Board had a public meeting again on May 27th, and they had very good participation again from the public, and it seemed to be something that the general group of public could agree with, and that moved on 11-1 for you tonight. Also, if Diane, would you switch me over to the aerial real quick? I just want to make sure we have us all in front of everybody so we're transparent. Not just the Riverwalk, but it was mentioned at Gray's Lake. I just want to make this as part of the record that at Gray's Lake, this would also be as part of the new ordinances, the fishing docks, the bridge, and the swimming beach. The docks, for the reason is that we have a very popular watercraft rental program that's never stops. We have people coming in and off those docks all the time. The bridge just wasn't designed for that, and there's too much traffic going on there. It's a safety and liability issue for us. And again, the beach it's buoyed off, and that's where people are swimming at. So the rest of the area, which is open to fishing, we even actually worked with the DNR several years ago, got a REAP grant to regrade the slope from the beach going toward the right on your screen all the way back around to about this point. It's been regraded to be a more comfortable slope so people can access it, and we purposely put out 3 different spaces that are kind of rock jetties that are flat, that you can get out, and they have turf on top of them so you can stand there and fish as well. So I will leave you with just one message. I think sometimes the message gets lost in translation sometimes. We aren't discouraging fishing at the Riverwalk. In fact, we want to celebrate it. We want people to come down. We want people of all diversities to come down and use the Riverwalk for whatever their quality of life choice is, and they participate in recreational pursuits. We just need a few rules to manage that space, to keep it safe, and to make sure that we can keep the investment protected as well.
So this map, you can fish along the Des Moines River basically from MLK all the way up and on the east side, correct?
Just double check, make sure we're all the same. So on the east side, you can fish anywhere it's green, all the way up.
All the way up the river?
You may,
Okay.
under our proposal.
That's quite a bit of fishing.
It's very popular up towards the dam in that red section there on the west side though.
But you can't fish on the east side?
Yep, they can fish there.
Okay.
And you can fish on the west side by the dam there. It does open
Can you
up there.
point on the,
Yep.
Where all the signs are gonna be, there is some green up there.
It turns into green right here again. You see this and goes north? That
Yeah.
whole popular destination is still open to the public
for fishing?
for fishing.
Isn't that where they have that intake or storm sewer outlet
They
or
have
something?
a structure from the dam there.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that right there, yes.
That used to be an old power.
Is that what it was?
Yep, there's Bill.
So how many do fishing do we have along the river?
We
Do
did
you
a
have
little-
any idea and what you're taking out as a result of this?
Definitely. We did a little GIS of available.
In the city of Des
Yeah,
Moines?
within the city of Rivers.
No,
city
just
limits.
Des Moines.
River.
Yep.
Des Moines.
The Des Moines River, I did a quick analysis of the city limits that included the Raccoon and the Des Moines River. There was roughly 92 miles of riverfront that was available to access.
What did you say, 90?
2 miles, that counts both sides of the river, both rivers, city limits. So, not sure if all that's public, but the majority of it was public access.
So how much are you taking off of this?
Right here, if you estimate that each block's about 200 feet, you can see on the west side here, the river, we're taking away of riverbank along the river walk, about 600 feet.
So it's pretty minimal.
Yeah, because you can still fish up a lot of the west side of the,
And the
Yeah.
issue for that is pedestrian safety?
Conflict is what we see, haven't seen a lot of it yet, but we have seen it, where a local angler might want to set up right there and fish because it's close to the river, but the balustrade wall touches the trail there. There is no green space like we have everywhere else around the river walk, so we're worried about bikers coming and going and somebody casting behind them.
So even though we've got all of this riverbank that there's fishing allowed, I guess going back to Ben's comment where the riffraff is there and they can't really get down to the water or it's dangerous, how much of that, I don't think there's that much along there.
He had to be showing Raccoon River.
on the east side,
Raccoon
they can,
River.
they can fish along the whole east side where it's showing, right?
Correct.
Yeah, they can
Your
fish along the
picture-
whole west side too?
What was the
Or
picture that,
wherever we're not prohibiting it.
Scott Street.
oh, that was Scott
Scott
Street.
That is Scott Street, yeah. And we're not regulating Scott Street. It's not a park facility, but we're not having any, there's no regulations, no changes.
And people still go down the riffraff and still fish.
Yeah, they
fish
do.
there, quite a bit,
Down the river, yeah.
when it's low enough.
I don't think there's any riprap along this section from MLK
No.
to the dam
No,
anyway. I think
there
it's
isn't
all
anywhere.
balustrade.
It's all balustrade wall with a levee that's mowed regularly.
Mr.
Ben,
Coleman?
Ben, just south of this picture is the pedestrian bridge, the old First Street or Water Street, whatever
Right
it
by
would have
Principal
been
Park
called.
there,
What is the fishing restrictions on that?
no changes. You're still allowed to fish on that. It's a much wider bridge.
Uh-huh.
It was an old vehicular bridge. It was modified to be, with no shrinking of it, but it's modified to be a pedestrian bridge, so we have no
Yeah.
changes there. It's a popular location to fish as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for the record, if we were to get the Jackson Street Bridge repaired and pedestrian access back on it, fishing on it, allowed or not?
We haven't thought about that, I guess. It would be tight. We'd have to go back and maybe do a little quick measurements on it just to make sure that we have some good purposeful
I mean, that
width.
bridge is what, only 30 feet wide or something?
Yeah, it's
or-
not as wide as
At the
others.
most.
Yeah, it's not as wide as
I
Southwest
mean, use
First.
2 lanes plus stuff on either side, so.
To protect ourselves, I'd support a motion that added Jackson Street to it, even though it's not in use now. When it became in use, we wouldn't have to,
I think
would
we
make
ought-
sense.
let's look at it and
Southwest First.
wait till we see what happens.
Couple of other things, Ben. Going back to the comments made by Department of Natural Resources and wanting to work together and on the education and the volunteers, and how do you see that going forward? Assuming that we pass this tonight, what would be your thoughts on that? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We've already been working with Ben Dodd here. He's helped us with some language for our signage. He's helped us with Iowa DNR newsletters that go out to local anglers about helping us keep up the litter and keeping up with fish remnants that are caught in the spoil after you fish. We've got a great relationship right now, so I have no worries about us continuing to have a great relationship
Ben, do you concur with that?
I do.
Step.
Okay. I do. You know, I guess one of the visions that I think we've had all along has been to try and implement a Charles City-type project down here to improve the safety on the Center Street and the Scott Street dams, and really make that all one big project for multi-use recreation. And so, you know, we can't stand up here and support a ban or a restriction of public use on a public waterway when really we want to go the opposite direction. So, you know, I'm more than happy to work with Ben on a plan of attack for that, and also, excuse me, to reduce the litter, the fish remains, the bait. I'm definitely going to continue to work with him on that because we want that cleaned up. Those
You know,
folks
we
need-
would love some of the changes on the river, like you've seen up in Charles City, but you know what, it comes with a huge price tag.
Well, and so that is, the follow-up question is, can you help us achieve that? And create that trail and that separation that I think are legal things that we need to have? Can we get a grant, Chuck?
Yes,
What do you
we
think?
can. Yes, we will.
Can we make that happen?
It's our job to help enhance the opportunities for everybody to enjoy outdoor recreation.
We have that on record.
Awesome.
Right.
We have that on record.
Okay, so Chuck and everybody, Ben and Joe, I think that we have some concerns, but I think we're willing to work with you to see if we can't resolve anything that was presented by Ben, legal, and our Park and Rec Department moving forward. I mean, I'm not going to make a motion here, but I'm hopeful that that's what we can have happen. And if we can make that happen, we can get that separation and everybody's comfortable with it. I think we can fix this.
If we get that to happen, we could take another look at this.
I would like to see an evaluation.
Not set in stone that we can't make some changes.
What could we incorporate to do an evaluation at the end of the season? I mean, after you get through the biggest share of the season, how would you suggest that?
Well, in working with these guys, maybe we can come up with some sort of a design that comes close to doing it, and then we put some dollars and cents on it, and then we go to Chuck and he gets us the money and we take care of it, no problem.
I've got a lot of park projects too, so if he's got money. I think right now that our other partner, Glenn Lyons, is here today too from Downtown Community Alliance. You know, Glenn's got the people, the boots on the ground, if you will, that manages the space for day-to-day operations. So together, Glenn's team and mine will make notes of any conflicts, any issues, but it would be our recommendation, you know, to get this in place and then manage it for 1 year and come back to you and tell you, like we did with the no camping ordinance a while back, and tell you if there was any problems with that and see how it works, so.
But in the meantime, keep working with these guys to
Absolutely.
come up with a plan that resolves some of the issues we're talking about here.
Sure.
You're okay with that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I do have one more specific question about your map, Ben. At Simon Estes, you know, a big chunk of the summer often, the water's up where you'd have to stand on the stage. Is the back of the stage legal to fish off of?
It's one of the compromises we made because most of the time, the local handling community has been really easy to work with. If a concert event person was setting up, they would move on and move down the river. So if there's a concert there and it becomes a problem, we have to revisit this to make sure. But right now, for the most part, we don't see a lot of it there.
You feel like we have the authority to go in and kick them out if necessary, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're fishing over your lunch hour, you'd leave if they asked you, wouldn't you?
I did today.
Okay, well, there we go. Where's that? All right, Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're gonna make this work, but we're counting on you, Chuck. All right, do we have a motion? Does somebody want to put something forward here?
Well, I thought Chris was, but if you want...
I was actually going to first suggest that we take them one at a time, the A, B, C, and D, but my only real concern is on C, and so maybe we could vote on A first, is that all right?
Absolutely.
I'll move 50A.
And since you know, everybody knows where I've been the last week, you know where I'm going to be going with this.
Canada?
Canada?
Expand it. It's international.
We've got a lot of comedians on the council, so you guys have to...
I'll move 50B.
I thought you were A and B up to now, and C was your issue.
Okay. I'm not sure. I only said A. I
Yeah, he did one at a time.
Okay.
7 yes.
And on C, the rules that are here as the flyer, maybe Ben, I have a couple of concerns just about definitions of some of these words, like, yeah. And so I'm wondering if other places in our code, or there's a definition section, for instance, no camping. We've had, some argument about how that's defined and what that means. Just wondering if we have it any more defined, or if our legal counsel has any recommendation to us on that.
On which one?
Well, the last rule, for instance, I'm on C, is no camping.
That's much more definitional emphasis is placed in that particular code section, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
So this was just meant to be something we could actually use for the actual signage. We couldn't put the whole code on there. So these are the general rules, and by the way, all but 2 rules on here. One would be fishing, one would be inline skating, skateboard, bicycling, on-park furniture, which is the other new rule. The rest of them have been in the Park and Recreation Code for many years. We're just overlaying these rules on the Riverwalk, much like we would do any new park.
Okay, that answered my question, so I'll move C as well, 50C.
Seven yes?
And D, Mr. Dodd spoke.
Did you want
So let's receive and file his comments.
I'll move to receive and file the comments.
Ben, I just want to point out, that kid snuck a sauger in on you. Those weren't all walleyes, so.
7 yes?
Okay, moving right along.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down, guys.
Thank you. All right, let's quickly move to the hearings. Item 54 is on the 2014 ADA Sidewalk Ramp Program Contract Resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, and engineer's estimate, and designation of the lowest responsible bidder as MPS Engineers, PC. Umesh G. Chetty, President, $519,610. Council Communication Number 14-255A is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Is there anybody here to speak on item 54? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
I'll move.
Six yes, 1 no.
Item 55, on the 2014 citywide PCC Pavement Restoration Program, resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, and designation of the lowest responsible bidder as TK Concrete, Tony J. Vermeer, President, $417,950. Council Communication Number 14-256. A is approving the contract and the bond. Is there anybody here to speak on this item?
I have a question, and I guess we're going to see it on a couple of the others down here. Maybe this would be for Mr. Halls. Several of these bids have come in over budget, or over the construction estimate. I think, in fact, of the hearing items tonight, 3 of the 4 items have come in over bid, or the construction estimate. And it says on the document here that GO bonds to be issued with, for future GO bonds to be issued to cover this. I wasn't aware that we had done it that way previously.
Jeb and or Scott. Scott, why don't you start on that question?
And the next one's even more problematic.
Yeah.
It's 500,000.
Scott Sanders, Finance Director. Yeah, actually, we have done that in the past with the GO bonds anticipated to be issued. The difference is we delayed the bond issue this year until this series that's going to be issued on the 25th.
5th of June, okay.
So most of the time, we've managed to get the bonds issued before all the lettings come in the late spring.
Okay.
But in this instance, they're a couple weeks ahead of us on the bond issues. So, but it has happened in that way in the past.
Okay.
And we'll probably see more of this with construction being what it is now. It's getting more and more shortage of those out there to keep their prices low.
I'll move 55
And 55A.
and 55A, yes.
Thank you. Just clarification, engineer's office, it looks like estimated this one being at 443, and it looks like it's 417. Is that correct, Jeb? So we're under on this one?
On this,
Okay.
On this is the only one, though. The others are all over.
Okay, 56. This is on the 9th and Locust Parking Garage Repairs. Resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, designation of the lowest responsible bidder as Linder Painting, Inc., John R. Pools, President, $2,549,000. Council Communication Number 14-263 as approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Jeb, why don't you quickly address this one since the question's going to come up here? What happened?
Especially when you had 18 saying they would likely bid and one did.
Mayor, members of council, Jeb Brewer, city engineer. On this particular bid, our estimate prepared by the consultant was just over $2 million, and the bid came in over just over $2.5 million, so we're $500,000 over the estimate. We only had one bidder on this particular one, so we went back and did some extensive interviews, post-interviews with people who picked up the plans. We had extensive number of people that picked up the plans and looked at this. Essentially, as far as the business climate, the amount of work out there, people said, you know, they just really couldn't do the job. We did ask that this would be completed before next year. In this particular project, we really do need to do this work before next year because as far as the parking system, we'll need to move quite a few parkers in here when there's work done on 7th and Grand when it's demolished and rebuilt. There were some questions about the type of work. This is fairly specialized type of work. We looked at the estimate and we determined that if we did rebid it, we probably wouldn't get much better prices. This was a fairly good price. Our estimate obviously wasn't reflective of the work and the materials. These are very expensive coatings. Really, to call them paints, it's like a 3-part system with a zinc undercoat and a 2-part epoxy and a urethane top coat. This is structural steel painting. These are like 30-year coating system. They do have to do some specialized work as far as removing the paint with blasting and containment, quite a few safety requirements in order to do this work. So, you know, typically when we have these situations with the high bids and single bidder, you know, our tendency is to rebid it just so that we can test the market again. The problem if we rebid it, we cannot get the work done this year, which means that either we would have to displace a lot of parkers, or if we delay the work anymore, we'll have even more severe corrosion on these beams. This is painting the structural members of the garage, and if we defer it, we'll pay even more cost and repairs to the steel in 3 years. So we really do need to do the work. Our analysis and work with our consultant, even though we have a single bidder, we think it's probably fairly close to what's in line with the market, but we don't have the second and third bidder to prove that. This particular contractor has done work around the city. They're the ones that painted the Red Bridge, so they're very competent applicator of these very difficult coating systems.
So in terms of this, as you look at the bid, the majority of it, 480,000 of it on the overbid is all about the painting.
It's the painting. It is the painting. And we are going to look to try to do some value engineering as we do the project. If council does choose to award it, there's some things that are not directly related to structural painting. It's like some bumpers. And our thought was to eliminate some of that to try to get some cost savings back. We think we can eliminate a couple $100,000 if it's awarded as far as eliminating some of the painting that's not structural. We have to do those elements that are the beams because we're starting to lose
some of the corrosion is starting to affect a loose section of it, and they'll have to do repairs on those. And we want to paint it so that we don't have to do those repairs, because that gets very expensive, and we could, cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars additional to do the steel repairs if we don't get the painting done.
Bob?
Jeb, there's so many parts to this. Could it be broken down farther and have smaller bids, and not covering all this project?
It could be. The thing is since it's the parking ramp, there's a lot of staging involved, and you kind of, as you work your way up, typically that drives the cost up, because there are some fixed costs as they have to mobilize, especially with, so they have to cordon off things, bring in blasting equipment, things like that. So normally, we will do things in small pieces, really as a budget issue.
Right.
So we can spread out our cost over a number of years, but typically, if you add that up, it costs you more money because they have to remobilize.
Well, and they keep that parking garage open, which is even more problematic when they're doing that type of
But I
construction.
thought there might be others interested in smaller parts of it, instead of having the one
Yeah.
bid.
Yeah, the only thing is if we would give it, if we didn't have to have it done by next year, they said that may have helped it if we had like 2 years to do the work. But that requirement was placed upon us by the needs of the parking system, that if we're going to go, the plan is that 7th and Grand is supposed to be taken down next year. Could we delay that? Well, that also is principal, has that skywalk that they need to rebuild, and they've started that project, so there are a lot of dominoes in the whole downtown system, which really kind of puts us
In a bind.
In a bind to do the work. And
go ahead. The other piece of it, as far as I was concerned, Jeb, and I agree with Bob, however, over 2 million of the 2.5 million is all painting.
It's painting.
And so the rest of it, they're pretty much in line. And so we can't get anybody to do the paint. It'd be tough to, I think, Bob, try to.
So do they bring all their staff from Lincoln, Nebraska, or are they hiring out local folks to do that?
I don't know exactly. I know a lot of their supervisors are full-time, though. I don't know if they ever.
Did they do that? Did they do that with the Red Bridge? Did they bring their own laborers, or or they're painters, or?
I don't know. I think they do. They probably have some local, but I think a lot of their supervisors, I don't know if they actually live in Lincoln. They're probably just going all over the country. And
If all that painting to be done, seems like you'd have more than one painting company that could take parts of it.
Yeah, the problem, Mr. Mahaffey, is you get different companies working on it, they start working over each other, and it actually can become more complicated, because the coordination between the different elements can be difficult to manage. This project, I think Jeb summed it up quick and efficiently. We're kind of trapped in where we're at. As Jeb said, as they talked to the bidder that they had and the ones that were interested but didn't bid, I'm not sure we'd get any better. We might with some piece work, and what I would suggest is, and reluctantly, because this is one, let's rebid and see what's going on, but just the way the system is and the timing with the other ramps, I think we should go ahead with this bid, but also ask that the engineering do their value engineering with the contractor to see what we can do to cut costs and make it more efficient. And it could be how they sublet some of the work themselves.
One last question, Jeb. If we go forward and approve this, and you do your value engineering and you still get maybe a little bit of it reduced, how will this impact other projects within the parking system? Will it impact other projects? As to delaying work that will not be done in other garages, or?
That's a good question.
Scott Sanders, Finance. The reality is we'll flow the cost through the parking system, and it will have to delay other projects probably in the near future, like 2-3 years out.
So do we know which projects it will delay?
No, fortunately, we've got it programmed that we can handle this additional cost plus what we intend to do at 7th and Grand and 5th and Walnut. Thank you. And so it's really the projects that fall in line after that that are that 3-year frame. They're going to be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual need for city funds on 7th and Grand hasn't been finalized yet. I think maybe Matt could talk at that. We do have 5th and Walnut, which was really a demolition and a parking lot. Essentially, at some point, that structure has to come down, so it's not, normally demolitions you can kind of keep pushing out because you're not worried about the increasing cost of pay me now or pay me later, like we are in 9th and Locust. We want to keep this garage, so each time we defer it, our repair costs keep going up because there's more damage. However, on 5th and Walnut, it is in a condition that we eventually have to take it down, although there would be some opportunities if there was, over a year that you maybe could, I hate closing a structure, not taking it down, because you don't get the advantage of the surface lot. So, but it would, if there was a financial issue, you would have that opportunity, but programmatically, it wouldn't be recommended if it's possible.
Jeb, over on this side of the table, way over here, if you would address Mr. Bill Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeb, I don't doubt that we're probably at a point where we have to go ahead and do this, but could we have not realized that we needed to get this done sooner, so we could have had a little bit more lead time, so that if we could have wanted to wait a year to get a better competitive bid, could that have been done, let's say, last year? And more importantly, or do we have any other bridges or garages that are in that condition now that we're going to be painted into a corner on the next bid?
Yeah, if I had a time machine, I would have bid it last year, but this project has come up, and there's been times because of the finances that we have deferred it based upon our TIF funding and things like that. So those decisions were part of a comprehensive budget issue. When we came up as far as the 7th and Grand and how that was going to play out, we were finding that out last year. So yeah, it would be. We do try on the bridges to try to stay up on those as we can with our inspection. Though sometimes we do, painting is something that gets pushed off because, when we run into a budget issue, it's like, well, I can wait one more year, and you can wait one more year, and then eventually you get to the point where I can't wait anymore. And that's kind of the problem of painting, because it's not like something that's falling on your head and you have to deal with it. But, we've done quite a bit. We do have a program for corrosion protection on the bridges. We've done Southeast 6, and we try to keep those so that we don't have a situation where we're boxed into it. But there are times when we have to spread them out because we can't take two bridges. There may be two bridges that have detours, and we can't take them down at the same time, so we may need to do one a particular year, and we get boxed into that because of some traffic or programmatic need. But yeah, I would agree. If I could go back, if we bid it last year, maybe we could have taken it another year, and this is a case where we deferred it, and now we've got a project. If we didn't have 7th and Grand, we would probably wait one more year. But we're talking waiting 3 or 4 at this point.
And Jeb, if I could jump in, our engineering staff and traffic transportation, all of our team looks at this stuff pretty regularly, so they give us reports on things, and unfortunately, as our structural issues on our budget get a little tough, now and then we have to push certain things back that we don't want to. Now, I know that we're constantly going to keep looking at all those CIP items to make sure we're on top of them, and I know that Jeb and his crew are, and also I know what you would like to do is push it back into last year, because you didn't have to make that decision last year.
Jeb, you said you've worked with these people before, and at that point in time on those jobs, you recall, did we have other bidders, and they were low bid at that time?
Yeah, they've been low bid on those other ones. The Red Bridge one was a separate project, but they've gotten low bid before, so.
All right, Mr. Coleman, then Mr. Gatto.
I buy into the, let's try and value engineer this and see if we can't find reductions. But I worry that once the council takes action and they have approval for this much money, then we're begging and we've lost any of our leverage. So my question, and it would be a recommendation if it's legal, I think the citizens would appreciate us waiting a week, maybe not 2, but having a special meeting late this week to see if we can't do some of that, haircut on this.
You talking about value engineering?
Yeah, and do it in short order, so before the council approves it, we have the leverage. I normally wouldn't suggest that because that's not really fair to the second bidder, but we only had one bidder this time.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think we should consider using 3 or 4 or 5 days, whatever we have underneath, within the bid documents to try and do that before we vote on it. It's not to say, I'm against rebidding it and starting over, but I think we ought to give them a chance to try and get to something a little bit better before we vote on it and we lose any leverage that we might have. I think if today we delayed it and asked staff to go out and work on our behalf, even if it meant holding a special meeting late this week to move forward, I think the citizens would appreciate us trying to save a little bit of money.
I just, Jeb, into response to Mr. Coleman, and maybe you could answer it. I'm concerned that we're going to lose this season, and we're going to get another bid back next year, for instance, that ends up another $300,000 higher.
Yeah.
Because I think Jeb points out quite accurately that, these things start deteriorating, and it can happen pretty quickly, and all of a sudden, we got a whole bunch more work to do, and we should have done it 12 or 24 months ago, and we're still trying to negotiate the lowest price. But I would be supportive of trying to value engineer this thing, see what the heck we can do to save money on this deal. But we want to do it right. We don't want to cut any corners here.
I might offer something that typically on the contracts, you can't take a change order out till the contract's awarded. So it's sort of it's an order of precedence. We do issue what's called a notice to proceed to the contractor. So even after the contract is awarded, they don't have permission to start until we get the notice to proceed. That makes sure that everything's in order as far as the insurance and things like that. If you wanted, maybe you could put something on there to say, direct the city engineer not to issue the notice to proceed until a value engineering change order could be negotiated, and then you would basically award it contingent. We haven't done that before, but I think we could do that, and we did talk about this, that we would want to do. We have it identified where there's actually line item bids that we want to delete, so they're already pre-identified in the contract as far as elements that we would say we would take out of there, so it's not really a price negotiation. It's like we want to delete X amount. So the city, the amount, since it's less, it'd be like 10% of the contract, we could issue that change order essentially and say this is what we desire to do, and then issue the notice to proceed. So you could make that as a condition of the award. I think if we wait to get the award, I'm just concerned, weather is going to be upon us because it's going to take all year to get this done, and these coating systems are temperature dependent. So, we can't be painting in December.
So the notice to proceed, Jeb, then is done administratively. If we approve this tonight, then the notice to proceed would be done administratively by you or?
Right. Typically, it's part of the administrative process when council approves it, but you could direct the city engineer to say, don't issue the notice to proceed until change order. Then we could send a letter back to you and tell you what we got on that. I'm anticipating somewhere in the range of $200,000.
Yeah.
Mr. Gatto, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I just,
Some other people speak before you.
It's a reduction of scope.
it's a $500,000 over what we estimated. We have one bidder. They're not a local bidder. We're not putting anybody to work here in the city of Des Moines. We're spending $2.5 million and we're sending it to another state with another company. I struggle spending our money that way, and we only have one bidder. And that makes me think, is there something about this job that nobody wants to touch? I can't believe that we're talking about painting, that we don't have companies that we have painters that can do this. I don't know, and I like the idea of maybe waiting. I like the idea of breaking it up into something smaller. I understand the urgency now where we're painted ourselves into a corner, but that's not being a good steward of our money in any way, shape, or form, I think. And I struggle with this decision. And I know it's not your fault. I mean, you're doing your job. You're doing what you need to do. It's just that, we've painted ourselves into a corner, and now we can get another change order and have it $300,000 more than this. They can come right back at us. They're the only folks.
So your suggestion is what?
My suggestion is to go back to them and see what we can do, or possibly break this up into something.
Try to value engineer this?
Yes.
Okay. Skip.
Jeb, if we were to award this contract from the day that they set foot on the property until they finish, how long of a time frame would that be? that you estimate?
No notice to proceed unless we...
It's going to go all the way into November. They're going to have a tough time. It's a full contract. In fact, that was...
So in other words, we won't do it this year?
We will do it this year. It's this year.
We will if
Well,
the board...
but I'm talking about if we have to,
Much of a delay.
If we don't do it, if we don't do it, then the decision comes down to, do we just defer it 3 years and then pay the additional costs to do the steel repair? I mean, and that could be, $400,000 or $500,000 steel repair, unless we're willing to displace Parkers next year during the 7th and Grand, which, we've kind of made commitments to try to make that happen and not displace people.
answer your question.
Is there a safety issue with this bridge here?
Yeah.
It's not
There's a
bridge.
parking garage.
Or a parking, yeah.
Not today.
So this is an epoxy that is weather dependent. Once the temperature drops to a certain point, it won't set up.
Right. So it's
So
actually
would,
three
would
parts.
if we waited until, had a special meeting on like Friday and tried to get some value engineering into this, do you expect it to really impact this job that much?
No, I don't know if Wednesday, I don't know why, is Friday a particular, you guys already meeting on Friday? I didn't know if,
No.
because if that's the direction, we could bring it back Wednesday.
I just don't want us to get into the winter season, then all of a sudden we can't finish the project, or they don't want to start it because they're not able to finish it.
Right, these are, ordering the material, these are specialized paints, they're not like you just go down to Menards, these are expensive.
I'm going to ask the city attorney to throw some legal jargon into this so that we can...
Well, let me start by saying first that Assistant City Attorney Brewer did a nice job of explaining.
You didn't realize that.
Council's choices, council can certainly continue it if they wish to, but you cannot change or negotiate the bid prior to award. The Iowa public bidding statute requires that the bid be made on the specifications that were submitted. That being said, as Jeb's explained, a change order could be processed through, and that's how value engineering is normally done.
And so a motion to do that would sound like what?
It would be a motion to approve the contract, and just as Jeb explained, but direct the engineer not to issue the notice to proceed pending satisfactory completion of a change order to address some type of value engineering. I don't think council can set parameters on that at this point. That would have to be agreed to as you go through, but it is a public bidding process. It is not a negotiating process.
Okay. So if somebody do something
I would
that
like
sound
to
a
make,
little bit like that?
I'd like to make that motion.
Yes.
And the only thing I'd add to it is I would like the city manager to communicate with the mayor and the council before the issue,
The notice to proceed.
the notice to proceed is issued.
So where?
Let me just make sure that we're being clear, that would be a communication as opposed to coming back for a request for permission.
Correct.
For your
Yeah.
Thank you.
information, so you know what we were able to work out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we don't want to set parameters, like a savings of this, I do think that it's important that we identify the changes that can be made that aren't of an urgent nature, those kinds of things. There are some things we have to do now. We probably have a contract out because it's sometimes smart to do it all at one time, but if we can't afford to do it all at one time, let's not do it. So that's my only comment. So I'll move the authorization with the notice that it must be value engineered before
The notice to proceed.
notice to proceed is issued.
That sounded a little
Good
like
discussion.
the attorney
Yeah.
quoted.
Seven yes.
Okay, item 57, on the Waveland Trail, I-235 to University Avenue, the resolution approving the plan specifications, form contract documents, engineer's estimate, and designation of the lowest responsible bidder is TK Concrete, Inc., Tony J. Vermeer, President, $389,716.50. Council Communication Number 14-271. A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. Anyone here to speak on this item?
I'll move 57, 57A.
Make a quick comment while we're voting. A big chunk of this budget comes from the MPO, the STP and Transportation Improvement Program, so the whole region bought into this as a priority, and that's a good deal. It's a great project.
Yeah. 6 yes, 1 no.
All right, let's quickly move back. That completes the hearings at 5:48. Let's move back now to item 53 from Christine Pardee.
I think 51?
No.
They have all been pulled. 51 and 52 have been pulled.
Extra agenda.
So, item 53 is Christine Pardee, 641 19th Street, to speak regarding a request to introduce breed-neutral language in the municipal ordinance to better address the increase in dog bite attacks in Des Moines and to expand the scope of authority for animal control to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, County, members of council, and city staff. My name is Christine Pardee. I live at 641 19th Street, Unit Number 2. And the reason I'm here today is to request your consideration to do something that I think is very simple. And ultimately, after a little bit of discussion and providing you with some data and information, it's my hope that this conversation today will be the start of a conversation with multiple stakeholders as part of a task force that will really look at how Des Moines could change its ordinance as it currently addresses dog bites and dog incidences. So I'll rewind the tape just a little bit and give you a little bit of background of why I'm here, what caused me to be here. In October of 2013, and I'm an avid walker, as many people know, and have 2 dogs. I was out on a walk in my neighborhood, and unfortunately, there was a dog at large. The owner did not have a leash restrained on the dog, and my dogs were attacked by this animal. So the dog was at large. It did cause injury to my dogs, and that particular owner received citations for dog at large and the injuries caused. Very unfortunately, and unluckily, again, just about 4 weeks ago, they were attacked a second time. Not by the same dog, different owner, but also another dog at large. This particular dog had gotten out of its yard, and its owner was running through the neighborhood trying to get this dog back in the yard, whereupon it intersected with us on a walk and just went to town on them. And so they got attacked again by a different animal. They had injuries a second time, and certainly with these kinds of circumstances, obviously it's an emotional thing, but it started to make me wonder what the actual problem in Des Moines might be. Is this a problem? Does this happen to more people? Is this something that there's an opportunity to address? And so at that point, started to do kind of a literary research. Reached out to the Animal Rescue League, Josh Colvin, who I believe is maybe in the audience here tonight, and visited with him about this issue, and asked Josh if ARL or the Des Moines Police Department's Humane Chief Officer, and I believe Sergeant Butler may be here tonight as well, if there was any statistics on the frequency of bites in the city. And there was. I was forwarded that information, and I know that all of the council members have received a number of reports from me and data and things, and so I know this will be redundant for you. But just for the purpose of the presentation tonight, I just want to share a few statistics from this report. This is a report of dog attacks. It includes a little bit of other information as well, but it was absolutely shocking to me, and I was very surprised at some of these numbers. In 2013, and Josh, if anything's wrong, please give me a fact check here, but I'm referencing the report directly. 2013, 414 dogs in the city were involved in it. I'm sorry, there was 414 incidences. The victims' ages was very interesting to me. 124 children, 12 years of age and younger, were victims of dog bites and dog attacks. And then the remaining 282 residents of the city were age 12 and older. The report breaks some of the statistics down by zip codes, and before I share this particular bit of information with you, it's my perception that this is a citywide problem, regardless of where this occurs. I don't think this is a breed-specific problem. I don't think this issue discriminates by breed. I don't think this is an issue that just affects one neighborhood or one zip code. So I felt it's important to share that because sometimes I think there's a perception that certain things happen in certain parts of town, and clearly from the data that was provided by ARL, that just is not the case. Top zip codes that had the most attacks in 2013, 50317 had 110 attacks, 50315 had 107, 50310 was the next highest, and that was 58 attacks, and then it kind of goes from there. So obviously I've run out of time here. What I'd like to request council consider, based on the information I provided with you previously, is your consideration to form a task force of key stakeholders to really take a comprehensive look at how we can improve the safety for our dogs and also for people in the city. And I'd be willing to entertain any questions you have. I also want to mention, I did reach out to a number of neighborhood associations and Des Moines neighbors as well. There's a number of people here as well that if you had questions for them on where they're standing on this position, they are here as well.
It's my understanding that there was support from the neighborhood associations to start looking at this and having a discussion regarding.
I issued a position statement, circulated that around through a number of neighborhood associations, and they are, the ones that are here are supporting that. Also had an online survey in which 100 citizens from all over the city responded, and there was a 97% response. They felt city council needs to do this. So.
Well, Christine, I think we appreciate it. This is an issue that we've dealt with time and again, and the council chose at some point to not hear the dog issues anymore. But I do believe that we ought to take a look at our ordinance again, and if the council would like, I think we ought to first survey our neighborhoods, maybe sit down sort of an open meeting with neighborhoods and field a lot of stuff. I'll ask city manager, I would think, if somebody would give us a motion, and the city attorney to, hey, look at what we have, let's reassemble what it is, what we went through up to this moment to get to where we are. One of our issues before, there was a history long ago, and I don't want to belabor this, but where a dog had bite a number of times here, and rather than deal with it, we said, you can send the dog someplace else. Mm-hmm. And then we discovered that it was happening there with the same dog again. Right. So we decided that we should probably deal with it here. And we went through MAC and had a long discussion about it. But I think that maybe it's time that we look and maybe go back to MAC again and have another discussion there and ask how their ordinance is working, and do we need to look at a metro-wide renegotiation discussion of how we handle this kind of a situation, certainly in the city of Des Moines, but I think everybody in the MAC would like to know that we're thinking about changing. Christine?
I agree with that comment, Mr. Mayor, and what I would like to do is to refer it to the city manager's office and work with legal and the police department and Animal Rescue League and talk about, how would you see this moving forward?
Put together a process.
Put together a process so that it can come back and we can make sure that we get all the appropriate stakeholders involved in the discussion. And I really concur with the comment on MAC, or the Metro Advisory Council, because we know all the problems that we had, and if we do something different here, we all worked hard to try to coordinate regional. The ordinances that we had, so if we can have some discussion at that level as well. So that would be my motion. Thank you for bringing it
I want to boil
forward.
that down to
I got
a
it.
few less words. But
Diane's
Thank you,
good.
Christine.
She gets
Yeah,
those.
she's got it.
7 yes.
all right, that takes us now to item 58, which is approving a review of the Zoning Board of Adjustment decision granting a variance from the separation requirement to allow property at 2428 Southwest 9th Street to be used as a liquor store. Choose alternative A, B, or C, Council Communication Number 14-279. I think that we asked for some further investigation and information, and we have it back, and so this item is before us this evening.
I'll move item 58C. That's a staff recommendation, and I had the opportunity to drive by that facility, and it really is a very clean, nice-looking, kept-up facility. Probably has a better curb appeal than any of the others that I've seen.
Is there anybody in the audience, we have a motion on the table, that would like to speak on this item regarding this specific location at 2428 Southwest 9th to be used as a liquor store? Again, Council Communication Number 14-279. The C that was moved is the City Council declines to remand the decision to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the decision of the board becomes final on this date. Seeing none? Item's been moved. Any discussion?
7 yes.
7 yes. We have already dealt with item 59. Takes us to item 60, an intergovernmental 28E agreement with Polk County for property acquisition, relocation, demolition services of Polk County Clean Water State Revolving Fund Water Resources Restoration Sponsored Project for the 4 Mile Creek Watershed, Council Communication Number 14-262. Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment. This is the watershed group that you're actually the chairman of. Mr. Moore attends. It's the first one we've put together on a more regional basis, and it's great to see this coming together and Polk County's participation and help with it. I think it'll be a good project, and we'll be able to move some other properties out of that floodplain.
Well, and for everybody that's listening, a lot of the work that we're doing is sort of a cooperative arrangement and negotiation between Des Moines and sort of the urban area, some of our suburban neighbors, and our rural partners, if you will, to look at water quality issues, look at flooding issues, look at soil erosion issues, and try to figure out how we plan together to look at the future. There are some very specific properties within the city of Des Moines that need to be dealt with, that have been inundated by flooding in the past, and I think we're proud to be able to move forward. And this is a volunteer basis, is it not, Ms. Manager?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, anybody, any comments? Could we have a motion?
I'll move 60. I've been pretty much involved in that 4 Mile Creek area and attended some of the meetings too.
Thank you, Bob.
7 yes.
Item 61, recommendation for Hubble Avenue restriping pilot project to return the roadway to its original 4-lane configuration from Easton Boulevard to East 33rd Street, and direct the city manager to close out the grant process with the Iowa Department of Transportation, Council Communication Number 14-267. For those of you that have been aware of this from the very beginning, the council decided to take a look at this on a sort of a test kind of a basis. We've done it on some other streets and looked at public safety, which was one of the primary issues here. The reports that we got back was that there was not a significant change that we could discern with the changes in the restriping that occurred. And so it's a recommendation of our staff to put it back as it was in the 4-lane configuration. So we have gotten some emails on it as to what we're going to do, and I know that a lot of folks have weighed in on this in the past. So that is the recommendation, either Bob or Skip. I know that both of you have worked on this. Skip, first.
First of all, I'd like to point out for those in the audience and those listening that we do not have bike lanes on Hubble.
Right.
And I even heard that this afternoon, are we getting rid of the bike lanes? They are not bike lanes, they are buffer zones. I do believe that last year we decided this to be a pilot project. We promised the people we'd wait 1 year. However, if we wait till the end of the first year to analyze it, that means the 3 lanes will still be there next spring because they'll be too late in the fall to change it back. I say thanks to staff that they brought this forward when they did and said they knew it was an early date, but their recommendation also is to go back to the 4 lanes. And I know I promised people last year when we voted on this that if the crashes didn't drop drastically, which they have not, that I would vote to go back to the 4 lanes. So I'll turn it over to Bob.
Well, we want to also thank staff for their efforts and also the residents who turned out for our meetings that we had. We made an effort to try this, see if we could save, if anything, it can be a better safety issue we wanted to be part of, but found out that it didn't reduce the number of accidents by the 25% that we were hoping to accomplish. The speeds and the number of cars and that all maintain about the same. And so, in fact, the number of accidents were about the same. It started out with more, and then it kind of leveled off toward after it had been in for 3 months. But it didn't accomplish that, so why should we spend the $200,000 to permanently make it that way when we have 80-some, 90% of the residents out there who were opposed to this? So if there's no other comments, I'd move item 61.
Is there anybody out there? Oh, that one. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City staff, Tim Lane, 6300 School Street. I attended the last public meeting and found a whole lot more heat than reason being shared. I would contest the fact that the study has been completed. It was a cruel winter. There's a lot of other things. In studies, in analysis, in tests of this nature, there are things called anomalies. It took Thomas Edison thousands of tests before he reached the filament that's in these light bulbs here. It took Jonas Salk 2 years of virulent, almost hateful speech against his studies before we reached a polio vaccine that has saved countless lives. And I do not see any unparalleled between the efforts of Salk and the efforts that we're doing here. Both can save lives. Since that meeting, there's been the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration report on how much each and every one of us is paying on an annual basis for traffic accidents. It's $976. And that's on average. We're all paying more for that on an annual basis. I would say you have invested over $200,000 in a test. Do not pull the plug. Because if you do, 7 months is not the standard. I'm not a traffic safety engineer, but I do know that the DOT does not accept 7 months as an appropriate test of anything. That is not a full year. So we've promised to do a test here. I would say stay the course. Do not waste the money spent on this study. Let it go to fruition, and if, as in almost every other case with these calming things done, and by the way, I was trying to figure out just what the issue was because there has not been a significant change in the transportation time through this corridor. 13 seconds one way, 8 another. There is not a delay. It is perhaps an issue of getting used to it, but I've gone over there and driven it myself, and I've noticed that most of the time I can obtain the speed limit course through there. And when you allow 4 lanes, the people that determine the speed are those individuals that ignore the speed limits. I believe if it is let to go to fruition, it will be a successful experiment. And if it's not, you will still have the option for reverting and going back to this issue. So you've kind of set out to test it, stay the course, test it, don't waste the money. And I'd also like to propose that this is an ICAP grant, I believe. This was a grant with the DOT that set out to do this. Are we not negating the deal of the contract with the DOT? Will we have to repay that $200,000 if we choose to take this course and abandon the test in midstream? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I'd like to correct you. We did not spend $200,000. We spent about $10,000. And the
Okay.
rest. Yeah.
Jeb, could you quickly address that?
Sorry, I was going by the Des Moines Register article from this.
Yeah, they're wrong on a couple things.
Mayor, members of council.
That's first row though, isn't it, Bob?
When we set up the pilot program with the DOT, of course, the monies that we haven't spent, we haven't spent them, so we're not really returning them, but we would lose access to those funds. The monies that we have spent to date from the DOT, they agreed we did not have to return those funds even with this time period. However, we do have to spend money city money to go ahead and restripe it back to the 4-lane, which I think is like $15,000.
That wasn't about $10,000 we spent to stripe it in the first place?
$50,000? Up to $50,000 of DOT money that we've spent to date.
For painting lines?
And we're removing the lines and doing some other things, so.
Not cheap.
Okay. Jeb, thank you.
Our recommendation, not only the crash, but the data and feedback we've gotten from the residents has been, as Bob said, overwhelmingly liking a 4-lane configuration over the 3-lane. And that's why we, staff is making this recommendation.
And after all, those are tax dollars, so why should we spend tax dollars if it isn't going to improve something?
All right, who moved it?
I did it.
All right.
7 yes.
All right. Item 62, on the admission of the city of Cumming to the Greater Des Moines Sister City Commission. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver was requested by the legal department and requires 6 votes. Is there anybody here to discuss this item? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move 62, A and B.
Seven yes.
All right, there were 3 items that were added as extra items and are included now. The first item is to receive and file a request from Midwestics and the Des Moines Music Coalition to place up to 2 pianos on city-owned property as a pilot project for the City Sounds Des Moines Public Piano Project. The sponsor is Councilwoman Hensley. Anybody here to speak to this? We had a nice presentation on it last time, but hopefully we won't repeat, but you'll give us all the update.
Well, hopefully I'm not going to repeat myself. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Larry James Jr., 4209 Kingman Boulevard, Des Moines. I'm here as a resident. I'm working with the Des Moines Music Coalition and Midwest TICS on this project. As I shared before, we have 3 locations that we had proposed. One at East 4th and Grand near Kitchen Collage in the city right away. One near in the Chess Park adjacent to Starbucks on Locust, and one at the hub spot on the Riverwalk. The locations were ideal because the funding's in place for 2 of them, namely the East Village businesses have come together and sponsored the piano for East 4th and Grand, upwards of $3,200 total so far that's been pledged. The Chess Park, we have full funding for that as well. The HubSpot, we have, in both those locations also, we have a caretaker set aside for those pianos. And the third, the HubSpot, the folks who run the HubSpot have agreed to be the caretaker, and we're working with sponsors on that. This is, again, not an idea that's new. For example, City of Boston has 75 pianos in the public right-of-way throughout the city. Closer to home, Iowa City has done this as well. In fact, they have an ordinance on file that is where they put pianos in the public right-of-way there. However, I'm going to defer to city legal on this one. I am working, I propose to council continue to allow us to work with staff and city legal on these locations. We need to circle back with funders. Without putting words in Mr. Lester's mouth, there are some issues from the city legal perspective on putting these in the right-of-way and city parks. This is a learning curve for both myself and for city staff. It's, again, not a new idea. I'd like to find out how other places have done this that I shared, and I know Mr. Lester is aware of the Iowa City's ordinance. And I need to pick my battles. This is an idea that I floated to. I've been before council on several occasions as an attorney representing folks, and this is a crazy idea that we floated with others to increase the street life downtown. We've had great public support. Everyone I've talked to thinks it's a great idea.
Yep.
I'm asking for your help to make this happen. I'm not going to lose any more brain cells trying to fight this fight. I'm not going to fight with the city on this. So I, again, defer to staff and work with the city manager and the city attorney to make this happen.
We'll ask the city manager to quickly address your statement.
And Mr. Mayor and Council, it is a great idea. I mean, it's pretty darn nifty. Like with everything, though, use of the right-of-ways in parks, we got to be careful that it doesn't allow somebody to do a not great idea. And the legal department's identified some issues we need to work through. Larry, thank you very much for sending the Iowa City ordinance, and we'll look at some of the others and see if we can figure out a way through that question. But in the immediate, we'd like you to receive and file and ask staff to look at city-owned properties, maybe not right-of-way in parks, that we may be able to do such a program that could work a little better.
Mr. Mayor?
Christine?
Larry, I think everybody really wants to make this work. I mean, I'm hearing lots of great comments out there about it, and it is frustrating to see that it's worked so well in other cities. But I appreciate your comment deferring to legal on that, because I'm confident that we are going to get it done, legal. I think that we'll figure out a way. I mean, whether it's other city properties, parking lot, but I don't want to have it set up in such a way that if we do this on a pilot basis this year, that it's so obscure where we place the pianos that it doesn't work. So that's what I just ask is, as we're working through this, that we really work hard to make sure it may not be exactly in the places that you want, but so that we can put it in different places throughout the city that has a chance of succeeding, knowing that there's going to be the traffic that will make it do so. So I will refer it to city manager, legal, and I guess it'd be those two groups that would work with it, and ask that you sit down and work through this, because they've got everything put in place. It's just the location and what the conditions are from the city perspective.
Mr. Manager, quick comment?
And we'll probably burn a few more brain cells for you, Larry, and pick some ideas that you might have, but we will. And your point about putting it somewhere that it does what it's supposed to do is exactly right.
Right.
So we'll look at that issue very carefully and find some.
And I promise you, if this goes forward, you will not hear me play the piano. I don't play the piano. And I don't fish either, by the way.
I don't know that it needs to come back to the council. I mean, from legal's perspective, does it need to come back? Or I guess at the end of it, I'd like to have some report as to
I think it probably will come back to council. Ultimately, it's a obviously a policy decision where you all will need to balance the risks that we'll identify.
Can it come back on the 23rd?
Absolutely. We'll put it as
I mean,
a
because
priority.
time is short.
Absolutely.
as
We'll put
well.
it as a priority, and we'll be happy to work with Larry to get it back to council by the 23rd.
And save city resources, I'll pull some more ordinance for you to review, so you don't have to worry.
The ordinances.
Boy, you're good at that.
We were already aware of those. Appreciate it, but we were already aware. I sent you an email, and that's not the issue, but I'm hopeful we can work through what are the issues, and then, of course, leave it to council to balance those competing interests.
Thank you.
My only comment would be sometimes we refer things and ask, can we do it? My perspective, and I think it's the majority of the council, is help us make it happen,
Right.
help us figure it out.
It's a great thing. Yep.
Here we have a motion to receive and file.
And refer it to city manager and legal to help us figure it out.
All right.
7 yes?
Item 2 is an item and a request from Councilmember Coleman to discuss safety, appearance, compliance, and state obligation to inspect hotels in the city of Des Moines.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for giving me a minute. Let me tell you, start with the end in mind. I'm going to ask that we refer this to the city manager and city legal and their teams to come back with recommendations on this. And with that, let me just put it in context. I've really had it up to my eyeballs in the situation that we have in different corners of the city with buildings that act like a hotel to get through state regulations and really don't function that way at all. It's been a scourge on our neighborhoods, and it's devaluing property all around the city. It's a detriment to development, positive development. I spent a couple hours this afternoon driving up and down Southeast 14th Street, Broadway, Hubble, Douglas, throughout the city Army Post, driving through the parking lots and looking at them once again. We've all driven by some of these properties, but there's a number of motels in town primarily with access from the outside that are not functioning, in my opinion and my observation, like the state law requires them to. And I am frustrated, and quite frankly, I feel like I'm not doing my job very well if we don't take this on and address it. It doesn't feel a lot different to me than what we did with some of the mobile home parks. There was certainly an issue there about what was it good for the city or not, and those mobile home parks. I think we have that issue here as well. But there's also the issue is this good for the residents there? Those mobile home parks were no dignified place to live. And as we've tried to clean up some of them, it's been a good thing for the city and a good thing for those residents. And I think we have to do the same thing here. This issue first came on my radar screen when I took a tour, the mayor and Christine and I, of the Randolph Hotel. And I said to a couple of our staff people, how in the world did we allow this building to function like this and look like this? There has to be 100 codes that it doesn't meet. And the answer was, the city doesn't inspect or approve or license these. The state does. And I've read the state laws, the code, the rules of the Department of Inspection and Appeals, and I'm convinced that the state is not fulfilling its duty to the citizens of Des Moines. They're not inspecting or holding the owners accountable for what is contained in the code. And so ultimately, I hope the legal team and the manager return with recommendations on all kinds of fronts, but particularly including making sure that we understand the state law and the state's obligation, and that maybe the mayor and the council would send a letter to the Department of Inspection and Appeals and demand that they do the biannual inspections that they're supposed to conduct. Less than a mile from my house last week, there's a little, I can't even think of a word to describe it that I'd want my kids to hear me say on TV.
Legal stop you anyway.
Well, it is a really, really deep hole, put it that way. It's horrible. And, there was a murder there last week. And this is a building surrounded by residential properties, people that are trying to take care of their properties. If they didn't mow their yard, we'd go cite them. But these places can operate without any regulatory oversight, in my observation, that happens at all. Hotels, you're not supposed to let people stay more than 30 days in a row. They have to account and prove to the state that they're paying hotel motel dollars. I question whether or not all these entities are paying that. And that is public record. The state law gives the state, it says the information is held in trust to the state treasurer and to the local jurisdictions. I think we should exercise our right and formally ask for a report on all the hotel motels that are in town and make sure they're paying those dollars. If there's criminal activity there, they're supposed to lose their license. I can tell you the places that I drove through today, there was criminal activity in each one of them while I was there. This isn't something that we're going to have to work hard to dig up. And with those comments, I will tell you, I'm convinced that if we want to better the city, there's 10 or 12 properties in town that I'm aware of that could change the city for the better, and I think our neighborhoods and our neighborhood associations would appreciate it. Lastly, I'd say the state law does say that local jurisdictions can ask for the authority to hold these places accountable, to do the regulations. I'm not quite sure how much money that would cost or if that's the right answer, but if it's an option, I think we ought to consider it and make sure that we're doing what we can to protect the citizens and taxpayers. This just drives me nuts. And to think that some of our great corridors like Southeast 14th Street and Hubble, Douglas Euclid, all over the city are ruined by these places, and we're doing nothing about it, kills me. So that's my rant. It has me really frustrated, and I hope there's some strong recommendations. And if it requires legislative action that we want to champion next year, I think our delegation from Des Moines and other major cities would gladly jump in and help us find a way to hold these places more accountable.
Joe, did you want to say
Yeah, just real quick, it's like a breath of fresh air hearing someone else say that, because up and down Southeast 14th, there's numerous hotel motels that people stay more than 30 days. It's a problem, and it's a detriment to our city, and we need to take some action on it, and I'm 110%. When you told me that today, I was like, that's great. I'm 110% behind him, and let's do what we need to do to get it cleaned up and do what we need to do for the better of the city.
Okay. Anything down here?
Chris, since you've read the law on this, does it say anything about renting rooms by the hour? I think some
there's a joke there, I think, Skip.
No, I don't mean it as a joke.
Yeah, I think the only thing that it might say is that the rates posted have to be by the day. So they have to have rates posted on what the daily rate is. So I don't know what that means. The lawyers would have to tell us.
Sir, check that out.
Thank you.
Everybody needs to pay by the hour.
I do have one comment, too. That same hole that Chris was talking about a couple years ago, they had a drug deal go bad. I don't know if you remember that, and they were trying to burn all the evidence behind the motel. Well, that's right in people's residence. Come on. I don't know how many strikes these people need before the state comes in and pulls their license, but bad behavior does not warrant you keeping your license, and I agree. We need to do something.
Yep, I think we all agree. So, Chris, your motion is to...
Yeah, the mayor and I talked earlier about referring this to the manager and the attorney, and asking you to come back with an array of options that the council might move on, and those that staff already have authority to do. I would very much appreciate and encourage the manager and the attorney of moving forward with any actions that we already have on the books that are available.
7 yes?
All right, we have one more item, extra item 3. It's a resolution. I'm not sure this is to approve, but to look at, refer to you, and how are we going to handle this? At any rate, to look at alternative exterior materials as proposed by Jerry's Homes for 2 residential condominium buildings at 5801 Southeast 24th Street, and initiating an amendment to the restated citywide urban revitalization plan. Mr. Manager, would you like to quickly address that, and then maybe, Joe, you'd like to?
Sure. The basics of this is, again, referring it to staff to look at our urban renewal plan and how it works with tax abatement. Somewhat over a year ago, we put some criteria that developers need to choose from to make it flexible for development, but also that the public is getting something for tax abatement. There's a condominium project that's also in a plan unit development where the materials used were decided in the PUD process, and halfway through, three-quarters through, the economy stopped so that they stopped building, and we initiated the new rules. The basics of this request is sending it back to staff and the legal department to see how we can match up that project to the urban renewal plan or the urban renewal plan to recognize that issue. And see what the best solution would be, but still keep that equity of how tax abatement is done, because I think it was a good rule that really increases the quality of what's building in the city. So this was the best way. We looked at, could there be a variance, could there be other ways to do this, and upon advice from both community development and the legal department, city attorney, this is the best way to look at that issue and match it up for a fair look at how that plan unit development goes forward.
Joe?
Yeah, since I've been elected, I've spoken to Mr. Grubb, I've spoke to the neighbors, and I mean, ultimately, what I think everyone would like to see, there's 4 buildings there, he's building 2 other ones, they all need to look the same. That'll help with the continuity of the neighborhood. All the other homes out there are vinyl, and that's what we're asking for. He has made some concessions to the neighborhoods. We've worked together and got those taken care of, so I think this is a good thing for both sides. And I'd like to get this moved and get it worked out and finished.
And I think Mr. Gatto pointed out a good policy question, because the change was made at a point in time when in fact we had a development that was three-quarters through.
Yeah.
Just about that it may not make sense in how they do their exterior. We may be able to fix that, but they do some other things that still meets the spirit and things we wanted to see with that urban renewal plan.
Right, and he met the majority of them, the energy efficient, the things around the dumpster, and what we needed to see. Mr. Grubb absolutely did those things, and this just makes it. It's a square, and so you're going to have 4 of them looking one way and 2 of them looking another way. That, to me, looking at it 10 years down the road, that's not what we're looking for.
So we'll put together whatever the best solution is, bring it back to council and see if you agree with how we've sorted this problem out.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, would you like to make a couple of quick comments?
Sure, just to clarify what the manager has indicated, council is actually making a number of findings. It's not, this isn't all for action that will be done prospectively. You're actually making a number of findings in 1A through D, and then in number 3, subject to the design and construction of the proposed new buildings, you're approving the vinyl siding as an alternative material based on those findings that are listed in 1A and D above. And then we will go through to amend the plan as the manager's outlined, and that's covered in paragraph 2. But I just wanted to make clear that there are findings actually being made this evening in the allowance of the vinyl siding as an acceptable material.
Question? So will this be handled then administratively once we take action on this tonight?
The first parts will be handled administratively, but the amendment to the plan will have to be done by council.
Back to us. Okay.
Yes.
I have a couple of quick questions, unless anybody else has some.
Krista?
Mike, maybe you're the right one to speak to this. I've spoken to Mr. Grubb, I think, a number of times on this particular issue. When did we originally permit this Carmen Estates plan for this 6 building.
Mayor, County members of the council, Michael Ludwig, Planning Administrator. I don't have the exact date of when that PUD was approved. It's
2005.
2005. Clearly, I think we have a situation where we did update our urban revitalization plan for tax abatement citywide in, I believe it was 2011. And so it would have been subsequent to approval of numerous PUDs. I think, as has been described tonight, we're trying to limit the scope of what's being presented, and we'll present that change back to you.
Okay, and so what it appears is the city attorney mentioned that, so what we're doing, subject to the design and construction, otherwise conforming to other applicable designs, the use of vinyl siding is hereby approved. So why, it seems like, I think some of our discussion is, we had some sort of a review and talked about quality materials and that sort of thing, and so vinyl siding is no longer approved. Could you quickly tell us why that came up? Why
I don't know if I can recall all the conversations about that, but I believe in 2011, it really just centered around a durability question of the materials and setting a standard. We had numerous planned unit developments that I think had utilized the cement board siding, and so we kind of made that a standard that was presented in the urban revive plan. However, again, this planned unit development was approved back in 2005 prior to those discussions, so that's the crux of the question.
Okay, I appreciate your points. I understand the continuity issue that we were talking about, and we've got some buildings out there that we're doing it. I will just remark, I think that we all have watched and seen some of the storms that have swept through Iowa, Nebraska, and the Midwest recently, especially with hail, and especially on some buildings that are a little older that had some hail hit it and absolutely shredded the vinyl siding. And so, part of our issue to get here, I think, was at least, and I understand what we're talking about here, but was to improve the quality and certainly the maintenance and upkeep of the buildings for the owner, or if they're rentals, the owner and the management team there, because certainly we're looking for the long term, and I think that was the point of why we even discussed this and changed it. But I understand the circumstances that we're talking about here, and I just appreciated your clarification.
No, you're exactly right, Mayor. I remember a discussion with the council when we were talking about the thickness of vinyl, and we went to a thicker vinyl so that'd be more durable. And I'm not sure what we're dealing with this request. The way the tax abatement rules were changed, we tried to make it so it was flexible for builders. They pick certain items out of certain categories. And that's what we're going to look at in this. Well, if you don't do that, what does work? And we may actually add some more information, choices for developers, because we want development to happen, want to succeed, want to be as durable as possible, but it also works very well with development to have, okay, if I can't get to this one, maybe I can do this one, and that works good. So that's some of the things that we want to look at.
Okay. We have a motion.
I have a question first. I have talked to several of my colleagues about this, but this is in general today, and I'm trying to avoid kind of a sweeping policy. So item 2, which is the amendment to the revitalization plan to allow multi-phase project commence before the adoption of the restated plan. So that's the tax abatement plan. How many projects sit out there that were commenced?
Phil could probably answer that. This was the only multifamily one.
I think this was the only multiple family planned unit development. And what we were trying to do, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Coleman, is keep it condensed to this situation and problem. But
Phil?
Mayor and Council, Phil Delafield, Community Development, and it is a very, very limited number. This was the only multifamily project that we are aware of at this point. There are some other similar types of single-family and townhome projects, but we think that that number is also very limited. I can get you that precise number if you need it, but I don't have that immediately available here with me tonight.
Does it make some sense that item 2 might be slightly amended to say, to allow multi-phased, multi-family projects? As a matter of policy, that accomplishes, Joe, what I think you're setting out.
Right, no, that's all right.
But locks it down a little bit more?
We can make that amendment in council.
Can we make it tonight and finish this?
Well, I mean, you can't finish, we have to amend the plan. The plan still has to be amended. This is just council's initiation of that plan amendment, and that will come back to you.
Okay.
You can also to give us that direction without actually amending this particular roll call, and we'll come back to you with that status already built in, sir.
I understand the hardship of both being approved, the fact that the way the property lays out with other buildings already there, he can't even, he can't get to some of the other points.
Right.
You know, he can't, so there's a little bit of a hardship built in because it's been phased, but I certainly don't want to open this up where it's expanded beyond the intent, which is moving forward, we want this higher level of materials.
Yeah, we've had that, I've had the same conversation with Mr. Grubb. He has other projects out there, and this was the only one that, you know, he stated that he would like this granted. So I agree with them, and, you know, that's the last intent that I want, to open up a flood. There wasn't that many when Phil sent me an email. They were the only multifamily ones. There was a couple townhomes in there, but not very many.
I'd prefer to lock it down, you know, as much as we can.
Right.
So when's this coming back?
Probably 1st of July, the first meeting in July.
First meeting in July, okay. You're going to be gone the 23rd?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll bring it back as quickly as we can, as long as we're satisfied we've got it locked down, everybody's reviewed on the staff side. I share exactly what the council is saying about, this is one situation, let's make it situational, and also make it equitable so that this makes sense in the amendment, and other projects don't use it as a way to...
And we've talked about that.
Yep, and that's what we'll be looking at. So we'll return as quickly as we can, but we want to take a little time and study the issue.
And we have some time for this project, too.
All right, so I certainly am supportive of absolutely taking a look at every alternative here, but I think we had some very straight purpose for doing what we did. Well, I think we may end up where we're talking about. I'm a little reluctant to say that I'm hereby approving the use of the vinyl siding without this, you know, review and understanding of what we're doing, where we're going, and what all it encompasses. Obviously, it's just for this particular piece, but I just want to make sure that, you know, what it is that we're doing, and that there is not an alternative that would satisfy the quality issues that were the purpose of putting the ordinance in place the first thought. So, anyway, that's where I am.
Yep. Yep, I moved it.
With the amendment that Chris
Yep, with the
inserted.
amendment, right?
All right. For the reason that I stated, I'm going to vote no on this, but it does pass 6-1, and we'll move forward.
Fair enough.
All right. Now, we could have a motion to adjourn in City Council and reconvene as Board of Health.
Mayor, can I make one comment before we adjourn with regard to the council agenda? I want my colleagues to know, and I learned a couple of things today. My work takes me out of town for our next meeting.
I'll be able to call in and participate by phone. But I learned today that the mayor is representing the city at the National Mayor's Conference, and this is the same week we've talked about Joe making a long-term commitment to volunteer at a camp. So 3 of us would not be in the building, and that probably could affect some people's, rights if they need a 6-7 vote or other things. So I'd just like the clerk and the attorney and the manager to know that and to prepare the agenda accordingly. If a special meeting had to be held at a time where more of us could be there, I would certainly volunteer to be anywhere that I could, but I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days for work.
Yeah, we'll look at that and also advise any applicants' zoning issues, especially where it looks like they're contested and there are 6-1 possibilities. We'll look at the timing and talk to the applicants about that issue.
I just don't know if I'll have any phone cell service where I'll be.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you
Well,
probably
we could
won't.
still get 6-7s, I mean, if we had to, but, because I think I'll be able to call in as well. But I understand. All right. Bill, are you going to make the motion? Adjourn to City Council and reconvene as Board of Health?
Closed session?
No.
What?
Adjourn the council.
We're adjourning as City Council and reconvening as Board of Health.
Okay. Convene City Council, reconvene as Board of Health.
We got to get him back on, he's been fishing, I mean, come on.
Mine's
Okay,
okay.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, we now sit as Board of Health. Item 1 is approving the legal department to proceed with court action seeking the authority to abate the public nuisances at the following locations. A is 503 Southeast 8th Street, it's fire-damaged main structure. B is 1828 11th Street, it's a main structure. C is 832 24th Street, again, it's a main structure. Is there anybody here to speak to items 1A, B, or C? All right, seeing none?
I'll move 1A, B, and C.
Well,
Yeah.
A was mine, so I
Two
figured.
was mine, so.
7 yes.
All right. Bill, would you like to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We sit adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Mayor.